Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into something you might think is old news.
Oh, really?
Measles.
Okay.
I know you're probably thinking measles. We've got vaccines for that, right? But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Measles is making a comeback in 2025, and it's got everyone talking.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to try to unpack why this disease,
Right.
once declared eliminated in the Americas,
Right.
is suddenly back in the headlines.
Yeah.
Buckle up, because this is a story of scientific triumph, but also human choices and the very real consequences of misinformation.
You're absolutely right. It's not just a history lesson.
Right.
It's a look at how, even in the face of incredible scientific progress,
Yeah.
things can change, and sometimes not for the better.
Okay, so let's rewind a bit. Measles.
Okay.
Where did it even come from?
Well, the research suggests that it actually originated in cattle,
Oh, wow.
probably sometime around the 11th or 12th century.
Really?
It's amazing to think that a disease that started in cows ended up shaping human history for centuries.
It's almost mind-blowing. So from cows to humans, and then what? This was before vaccines, right? I can't even imagine what it was like back then.
Imagine this. Before the vaccine, almost every child would get measles. It was like a childhood rite of passage,
Oh, wow.
but a dangerous one.
Mm.
Millions were infected every year, and many didn't survive.
Wow, that's a pretty stark reality check. Our sources paint a picture of the U.S. before the vaccine,
Right.
with over 500,000 cases and hundreds of deaths every single year.
And those numbers don't even tell the whole story.
Really?
Many survivors faced long-term complications like pneumonia,
Yeah,
brain inflammation, and even permanent hearing loss.
that's just heartbreaking. So how did measles impact populations that had never been exposed to it before? I'm thinking about like indigenous communities in the Americas.
Think about the Polynesian Islands or Native American communities.
Mm.
When they were first exposed to measles through European contact, it was devastating. They
Yeah.
had no immunity buildup, so the death tolls were staggering.
It really highlights how interconnected we are globally and how quickly a disease can spread, especially when there's no immunity.
Absolutely. It's a reminder of how vulnerable we can be.
Thank goodness for vaccines. I mean, that's when everything changed, right?
Yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah.
The development of the measles vaccine in 1963 by John Enders was a monumental moment.
Yeah.
They used a weakened version of the virus,
Okay.
almost like a training exercise for your immune system.
Yeah.
It allows your body to learn how to fight off measles without getting really sick.
So that's how the vaccine works, but how quickly did things improve after the vaccine was introduced? Was it like an immediate drop in cases?
Yes, it was a game changer. We saw a significant decline in measles cases, and that success paved the way for the MMR vaccine in 1971,
Oh, okay.
which combined protection against measles, mumps, and rubella into a single shot.
Wow.
Imagine one shot to protect you from 3 diseases. This made vaccinating people much easier
Right.
and led to incredible achievements in public health globally.
So you're saying that one vaccine had a ripple effect around the world?
Exactly. And speaking of achievements,
Yeah.
the U.S. declared measles eliminated in 2000,
Okay.
meaning there was no continuous transmission for over a year.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And then even bigger news, the entire Americas achieved measles elimination in 2016. It sounds like the ultimate success story. We figured out, the science developed a solution, and boom, problem solved.
It's a true testament to the power of vaccines and a reminder of what we can achieve when we prioritize public health.
Yeah,
Robust vaccination campaigns and the concept of herd immunity,
right.
where enough people are immune to stop the spread of a disease,
Yeah.
were key to this victory. To achieve herd immunity for measles, you usually need about 90–95% of the population to be vaccinated.
Okay, so we've got this incredible success story,
Right.
but then 2025 rolls around,
Yeah.
and suddenly measles is back.
Ah.
It's confusing, right? We've got a vaccine, we
Mhm.
achieved elimination,
Yeah.
and yet here we are. What
Yeah.
happened?
You've hit the nail on the head. It's a stark reminder that progress isn't always linear,
Yeah.
and sometimes even the biggest achievements can be fragile.
Okay, so break it down for me. How bad is this resurgence?
Well, in the U.S., there were only 47 cases in all of 2023.
Okay.
By mid-February 2025, that number jumped to 93 cases across 8 different jurisdictions.
Wow.
And it's not just a U.S. problem. The World Health Organization reported a global dip in vaccination rates in 2023,
Oh, really?
down to just 74%.
Oh.
Remember, we need 95% for herd immunity.
So we're a long way from where we need to be. What's causing this decline in vaccination rates? It feels like we're going backward.
There are a couple of key factors at play here.
Okay.
First, the COVID-19 pandemic.
Right.
While a crisis in itself,
Yeah.
disrupted routine immunizations globally. Think about lockdowns.
Yeah.
Overwhelmed healthcare systems.
Yeah.
And people being hesitant to leave their homes. It all added up to missed vaccinations.
Yeah.
This inadvertently opened the door for measles to stage a comeback.
You know, I hadn't thought about it that way. It makes sense, though. We were dealing with one public health crisis, and another one was quietly brewing in the background.
Exactly. And the second factor, which is more complex, is vaccine hesitancy. This isn't entirely new, but it's been exacerbated by the spread of misinformation.
Right.
Especially online.
So we've got pandemic disruptions and misinformation fueling this resurgence. It's a double whammy. But why are people hesitant about the measles vaccines specifically?
Well, remember that concept of a childhood rite of passage we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
For many, measles was just something you got as a kid.
Right.
It was considered a mild illness.
Okay.
So there's a perception that it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But what people often forget is how dangerous it can be, especially for infants and those with weakened immune systems.
It's like we've become complacent because we haven't seen widespread measles outbreaks in decades.
Precisely. And then there's the legacy of the Andrew Wakefield controversy.
Wait, wasn't that the guy who claimed a link between the MMR vaccine and autism? That study was completely debunked, right?
Yes. Back in 1998, Andrew Wakefield published a fraudulent study
Oh, wow.
that linked the MMR vaccine to autism.
Okay.
The study was retracted, and he lost his medical license. But unfortunately, the damage was done.
So even though it was fake news, it still had a lasting impact.
Absolutely. The anti-vaccine movement latched onto this study, and it continues to fuel fear and mistrust of vaccines.
So even though science has proven the MMR vaccines safe and effective, some people are still hesitant because of misinformation from decades ago. It's incredible how a single debunked study can have such long-lasting consequences.
It's a stark reminder of how powerful misinformation can be.
Right.
Especially when it plays on people's fears. And unfortunately, the Andrew Wakefield story isn't the only example. There's also the case of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
I have heard his name in the news. He's a pretty vocal opponent of vaccines, right?
Yes, and his rhetoric has been linked to a devastating measles outbreak in Samoa back in 2019.
Really?
Vaccination rates there plummeted, leading to 83 children losing their lives to a disease that's entirely preventable.
83 children. That's just horrific. I mean, it really drives home the point that misinformation can have real-world deadly consequences. It's not just about abstract debates, it's about people's lives.
It highlights a critical point that we need to acknowledge. Public health is not just about individual choices.
Right.
It's about collective responsibility. Our actions or inactions can have a ripple effect on our communities.
Yeah.
We're all in this together, whether we like it or not.
It's scary to think that something like misinformation can lead to such tragic outcomes. It really makes you question how we navigate these complex issues where individual rights and public health collide.
You've touched on a really crucial point there. The debate surrounding vaccine mandates is a perfect example.
Right.
It gets heated because it taps into fundamental values and beliefs.
On the one hand, you have people who see mandates as government overreach and infringement on their personal freedom. But on the other, you have the argument that mandates are necessary to protect the most vulnerable in our society. It's a tough one.
It certainly is. And while our sources don't explicitly take sides in this debate, they do highlight the potential consequences of low vaccination rates, using the Samoa outbreak as a tragic example.
Yeah.
It's a stark reminder that in our interconnected world, individual choices can have far-reaching consequences.
So where do we go from here? We almost conquered measles, but it's back. What's the takeaway for us today?
The biggest takeaway is that we can't afford to be complacent. Measles is incredibly contagious.
Right.
It can hang in the air for hours, and it only takes a small drop in vaccination rates to create the perfect conditions for an outbreak.
It's almost like we're in a constant tug of war with the virus.
Yeah.
We have the tools to defeat it, but complacency and misinformation can easily tip the scales in the wrong direction.
That's a great analogy. It really underscores the need for ongoing education and awareness.
Yeah.
Just because we haven't seen major measles outbreaks in recent decades doesn't mean we're out of the woods.
Our source keeps mentioning this 95% vaccination rate as a sort of shield against measles. Can you explain why that number is so important?
That's the magic number for achieving herd immunity. It essentially creates a force field of protection
Okay.
formed by vaccinated individuals, shielding those who are most vulnerable, like infants who are too young to be vaccinated, or people with compromised immune systems who can't receive the vaccine.
So it's not just about protecting ourselves, it's about protecting our communities, especially those who are most at risk.
Exactly. Herd immunity is a perfect example of how individual actions contribute to a collective benefit. It's about safeguarding the health of everyone, not just ourselves.
You know, it's fascinating to me that measles is both a story of incredible scientific triumph and a cautionary tale. We developed a vaccine, eliminated it from entire regions, and yet here we are facing a resurgence.
It speaks to the complex nature of public health challenges. Science can provide solutions, but human behavior, social factors, and the spread of misinformation can create significant roadblocks on the path to progress.
It's like we're living in a real-life sci-fi movie where we have the technology to defeat a dangerous enemy, but our internal conflicts and societal divisions are holding us back.
That's a thought-provoking way to put it.
Yeah.
It highlights the importance of addressing not just the biological aspects of disease, but also the social and psychological factors that influence our choices and behaviors.
It feels like measles is more than just a virus. It's a reflection of our times, a mirror to our fears, doubts, and the challenges of navigating a world overflowing with information and misinformation.
You're absolutely right. The measles story is a microcosm of the larger challenges we face today.
Yeah.
It forces us to confront some tough questions about our values, responsibilities, and the future we want to create for ourselves and generations to come.
And that brings us to the heart of this deep dive. Why should you, the listener, care about measles in 2025? What's the takeaway message here?
On a practical level, understanding the history, the science, and the controversies surrounding measles empowers you to make informed decisions about your health and the health of your loved ones. It's about moving beyond fear and sensational headlines and equipping yourself with knowledge from credible sources.
So it's about taking control of your health and not falling prey to misinformation.
Exactly. But on a deeper level, the story of measles reminds us that progress is not guaranteed. We have a collective responsibility to protect the gains we've made in public health and ensure that everyone has access to life-saving vaccines.
It's about recognizing that our choices have consequences not just for ourselves, but for our communities and future generations.
Yes, and it's about understanding that the battle against misinformation is ongoing. We need to be critical thinkers, question our assumptions, and engage in respectful dialogue, even when viewpoints differ.
Beautifully said. So we've covered a lot of ground today, from the historical devastation of measles to the triumph of vaccines, the concerning resurgence, and the controversies that continue to surround this seemingly simple disease.
It's been a fascinating journey, and I hope our listeners walking away with a deeper understanding of the complexities at play and a renewed appreciation for the power of vaccines and the importance of reliable information.
Me too. And as always, this deep dive is just the beginning. We encourage you to explore this topic further, dig deeper into the sources we've discussed, and most importantly, have those critical conversations with your friends, family, and communities.
Because ultimately, informed decision-making is our most potent tool in safeguarding public health and ensuring a brighter, healthier future for everyone.
We couldn't have said it better ourselves. Now, before we wrap things up, let's leave you with something to ponder, something that builds on what we've discussed, but takes it a step further. Knowing what you now know about measles, how do you see the connection between vaccination and the spread of misinformation? It's a question that goes beyond just one disease and makes us think about how we make decisions in a world where information and misinformation spread so quickly.
It's a great point. The measles story really highlights how crucial it is to be discerning about the information we consume and the sources we trust, especially when it comes to our health.
It's not enough to just passively absorb whatever we come across online or in our social circles.
Right.
We have to be active participants in seeking out reliable sources and questioning what we hear.
Absolutely. This deep dive has given you a solid foundation of knowledge about measles, its history, and the impact of vaccines. But this is just the beginning.
That's right. We've equipped you with the knowledge, but it's up to you to keep learning, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep the conversation going.
Talk to your friends, family, and your community about what you've learned. Share accurate information, address concerns, and advocate for evidence-based decision-making. Remember, informed choices are our most powerful tool in protecting ourselves and building a healthier future for everyone.
That's a wrap on our deep dive into measles. It's been a journey through history, science, and the human stories that shape our understanding of this complex issue.
It's been a fascinating journey, and I hope our listeners are walking away with a deeper understanding of the complexities at play and a renewed appreciation for the power of vaccines and the importance of reliable information.
Me too. And as always, this deep dive is just the beginning. We encourage you to explore this topic, further dig deeper into the sources we've discussed, and most importantly, have those critical conversations with your friends, family, and communities.
Because ultimately, informed decision-making is our most potent tool in safeguarding public health and ensuring a brighter, healthier future for everyone.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.